Well, hello again. This is Lee Thurburn, and you're on live stream Lee. And our purpose in life as a company and as a show is to help your business grow faster and become more profitable. Now, I actually have gone through a little bit of an angst-oriented transition in terms of how I do my messaging because of our guest today. I am reading this awesome book. And I'm going to introduce the author. Many of y'all know him, but this book has caused me to completely rethink, well, everything. And so I'm going to show you. Normally, I bring this panel on that said used to. I actually changed it recently. So this was how I sort of introduced what Apricot Rocket and what my company is all about. Oh, sign up with Livestream Lee and feature. And I know better than that because you're only interested in the benefits that you get, right? Well, so this is how I did it. And then I read Kent Billingsley's book, and I thought, okay, I'm going to boil that down to a more powerful set of words. So I decided to use grow faster, earn more, and retire richer. Now, I'm probably a little bit biased by actually what Kent uses for his tagline. And I've recently come up with, as of yesterday, because I talked to Kent yesterday and he said, I don't like what you got. And he's gonna actually help me craft it today. So you get a chance to see a little bit how his mind works. So I came up with this difference. Why join? Grow your company faster, grow your company and your cash flow crazy fast, guaranteed. Now, I don't know yet whether Kent's gonna like that or not. We're gonna find out. But I wanna introduce to you the guy that wrote the book, Entrepreneur to Millionaire, Kent Billingsley. Now, most of you have probably read a bunch of business books. And one of the books that you've read, I'm going to compare this to, and it's The E-Myth and The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And Michael has a whole series of books. I bet you Kent will soon, too. But those are really excellent books. They might be a little bit 20th century relative to now. But I'm going to tell you, you need to get this book. It is an awesome book. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it for the first time. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a book you have to read 3 times. And so I'm just getting started, but it is going to change the way you think about your business. So without further ado, I'm going to bring the author in. Welcome, Kent. It's nice to have you join us today. Thank you for making time.
You're welcome, Lee.
So we're gonna come back to my little change and talk about that later. But you and I have had several conversations. I met you a week ago briefly at Success North Dallas, where you gave a presentation. I wasn't able to stay through the end, but I could tell almost within like a minute or 2 minutes that you have a message people should listen to. And so I would like you to start off, if you would please. Tell us what brought you to the point where you have this powerful message. So take it away, Kent.
Yeah, thanks, Lee, and welcome to everybody that's listening and watching today. I was really fortunate, and I'll make it a quick story, but it's so foundational. I was working inside a large corporation, and a very aggressive, fast growth corporation. They were dominating their space, and yet some of the leaders were saying, you know what, we're not happy. We have wonderful incremental growth, but we're nowhere close to being what they were thinking of being optimized growth, maximizing sales, revenue, profits, consistent growth, predictable growth, highly profitable growth. And so they asked me to form a team and go back in the strategic business units, which averaged about $1 billion in size, and analyze those business units with no parameters, no governors or no scope. Just said, go look at them, work with them in a collaborative fashion to see what those leaders and the employees and your team of the experts you put together, what can you find? And it was fascinating. I started off with the best business unit in the company, and it was EDS General Motors at the time, and one of their highest performing business units. And together, in a collaborative fashion, we found all kinds of disconnects. We found areas that could have further been leveraged. We found parts that were broken. We found parts that were missing, and then we discovered, in so many cases, things to stop doing. In one meeting between marketing, sales, and the functional areas, we found $400,000 to save right in one meeting. and it was just fascinating. And their jaws dropped, our jaws dropped, because we were like, here's one of the fastest growing business units in not just EDS, but you could argue in the country at 40-50% CAGR. And yet there were so many opportunities, so much more potential, so much more growth and revenue, sales, and profits. And they didn't need to spend another dollar doing it. They didn't need to spend or hire another salesperson. They didn't need to invest any more in marketing. And they could have all that growth potential, but knowing how to unlock that treasure chest of wealth was where they were stuck, because they were using paradigms, models, and belief systems that had been proven in the past but weren't working today. And that today was 1995. Fast forward, I walk in companies today. I've talked to several companies this week, and they are living in last century with their myths, their paradigms, their models, and things. And so no matter how hard they work, no matter how hard they grind, and no matter what talent they hire and money they spend, they'll never come close to optimizing their revenue growth and profit potential and maximize their sales, because there's just so many areas in every company that could be fixed or woken up or leveraged that have never been tapped. And that's true in every company, from startups to billion-dollar firms. That launched I just got so excited about that. I love to solve problems. The more complex, the more fun I have. And it helped me. I got promoted to chief marketing officer, chief strategy officer of a billion-dollar tech services arm, helping run all of Asia Pacific, 16 countries, 11,000 employees. But then I came back to the States. I lived in Hong Kong for several years. I came back to the States. I started this business after I helped grow out a software company, a public company. So I've been doing this for about 20 years. And I have to say, Lee, to every listener out there, I don't care what company you work in. I don't care what you do. I don't care if it's brick and mortar, cyber. I don't care if you're profit, nonprofit. You have so much more potential in your company. You have a treasure chest of wealth that if you can learn, if you will listen, if you'll read, if you'll open the book and read and learn the roadmap on how to identify and create wealth inside your company, and that's what my book's all about, you will be amazed. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need to work any more hours. Matter of fact, you might be able to take Fridays off so you can stay at home and make sure to watch your program. You don't have to spend any more money. And matter of fact, you could give that back to the community. You could reinvest that. You could pay it out in bonuses. And you can dramatically reduce the stress. I remember a VP of sales in a company one day, he came to me and he goes, you know what you're teaching us to do is reduce 90% of the stress I'm under. Because now clients are coming to us. We're no longer chasing them and pursuing them and going after them like dogs. Clients now come to us. So anyway, I could go on for days, but I'll stop there.
Well, there is so much in your book. Of course, I've got it right here because I'm reading through it. One of the chapters I just read about your sales staff and reorganizing your sales processes, building literally a sales. I forget your languaging because I haven't fully assimilated everything, but basically building a sales process that causes the team to work together in effort. You talk about one of the things that almost everybody that has a small business has struggled with, and that is hiring your first salesperson and then finding out that you can't just turn them loose. You got to spend all this time. And salespeople, most companies grow on a model of hiring more salespeople and that sort of thing. And it just becomes a really difficult management burden to be able to get the profitability. So many problems related to it. But you give example after example after example in this book. Earlier today, we talked for a few minutes, and you described kind of a quick 4-point evaluation process that you go through with a company that you talk to them. And your goal during an engagement is to try to find sort of, I'll call it low-hanging fruit, quick revenue fixes that allow the companies to see immediate gains so that they don't have to wait month after month after month to finally see a return. Describe that process for everybody, please.
Yeah, let me go back real quick because you brought up a point I just don't want to let pass by. It's more than a sales process or a sales methodology. That's a piece of the system. And you have to look at sales as a system inside your enterprise system. And your system is composed of your processes, your structure, your strategy, your technology, your culture, what are called your soft areas and your hard areas. So you need the whole framework and system. Otherwise, you will become a victim of a horrific statistic as 98% of all first sales hires fail. And about 80 to 90% of sales hires, even if they make quota, never cover all 8 categories of costs. And those are profit eating or wealth destroying costs that you don't need, where in most cases 1 or 2 salespeople could double, triple, quadruple. I've had salespeople hit 20 times quota in client sites, which is astounding. But we should look at scaling that. To answer your question, then the path that I want people to learn, and really this roadmap that's in my book, is not about incremental growth. It's not about getting bigger. It's not about 20% or 40% when you could or should achieve 100% growth. We had one client, staffing industry, $5 million company. They were in my program for a few months. I went on a call with them in a major account. They were hoping to get a 7-figure contract. We walked out of there with a letter of intent for 5.7 million. We doubled the company size in one meeting. Now, there's no strategic plan that says we're going to double the size of the company in a meeting, because that's the limiting thought that people have. That's the limiting thought that says, well, you know, if I'm a salesperson, my quota is 750,000, and then if I can sell 800,000, I've had a good year. And my attitude is, really? Well, that's an incremental thinking versus being optimized. And optimized is when you generate all the sales revenue and profits possible using the fewest resources in the fastest amount of time. Because one of the themes in my book is not about someday. It's not a roadmap to go from entrepreneur to millionaire or an employee to millionaire someday. Because if you stay with it long enough, you'll eventually get there. It's how fast can you do it? How fast can a company generate 7-8 figures and put them in the bank or put it in your bank account? But the way I focus on optimization versus incremental would be how to do things better. That's not enough. That will never get you close to optimization. And so I look at really 4 areas. And the first one is, what are the areas of the business that we can leverage that are doing well? What are the things that are right? And every company has, I can find one thing they're doing right. I can find a lot they're doing wrong, but I can always find something they're doing right that they're not leveraging. These are those sleepy areas in the company, or what I call a revenue growth attack points. The second part of that, of this framework for optimization, then is, what are the areas that are broken? What are the areas that are kind of in place, but they're not working well? If targeting, your packaging, your pricing strategies are probably flawed. You're not calling on the right markets. You're confused on transaction selling versus complex selling. I mean, there's just so many areas that are broken and just kind of working, but actually holding you back. Messaging is a massive area that actually sabotages the client engagement process and slows things down. But when we can rewire that and craft those power messaging tools, the acceleration can take off. The third area I look at and I explore with a company, because I take them through this. I don't fish for you. I teach you how to fish, and because that model is so powerful and it's sustainable and then it's scalable. But that third area that's so important is now, what are the areas that need to be built? What are we missing? And I'll give you a great example today in marketing. Everything's gone digital. Social media, digital marketing, everything digital. Well, what we created is what I call a digital factory of activities. At the end of the day, I'm like, well, where's the demand? Where are the high quality leads, and why aren't you getting enough of them? Because you're focused on activities and you're focusing on digital. Well, there's 2 other real core elements of marketing, and those are both traditional, what I call advertising, your billboards to your mailers. Those still work in some models, not all models, but there are traditional forms that you could use. Then the other one is what I call physical marketing, and this is where you're out in front. You're leveraging your expertise. You came and heard me speak last Wednesday in front of 125 business leaders, 50 something on Zoom, I think. There's no greater platform. That is physical marketing. There's nothing more powerful than when you're elevated to the pedestal as the expert of experts within a room filled with experts, and you can deliver. You're an expert, Lee. You are an absolute expert in entrepreneurship and understanding entrepreneurs and why they work and why they don't. And for me to go in a room and give you knowledge you don't have, that's a burden on me. But then again, at the same time, if I can do that, then there's a respect, and you go, wow, what can I learn from this person? That's physical marketing. Companies they do so little physical marketing. They burn money on traditional, and they waste time and money on digital. I'm saying you need a healthy mix that achieves that level of demand that you need every time. The fourth area I'll share with you on optimization is those things you need to stop doing. I did an event, delivered an event, a speech about a month ago. One of the ladies called me. She goes, I got to be careful what I say. I don't want to give things away. I own a restoration company up in, I think, Pennsylvania. We talked for a little while. Within 5 minutes, I found an area of marketing that she was spending $1,500 a month. I forced her to explain why. She couldn't. And then we talked through it, and she goes, I'm going to call tomorrow and stop that engagement. There's no value. There's nothing measurable. They can't explain it to me. I don't know why I'm doing it. I just got caught in the trap, and I just kept doing it. And I said, stop. And yet, that, as easy as that sounds, that's one of the hardest things for leaders to do, is disengage and stop, because they're so hopeful, and they live in this world of hope versus this world of reality. And they just keep on, well, if it could bring in a lead, or, I'll just keep that salesperson who hasn't worked out for a year or two. If they could just sell something, they'll cover their costs. And they just keep creating this this non-reality to where the problem is, well, you're not set up for success. You and your company and employees are set up for maybe not failure, but sub-optimization.
Your book, and this is one of the things I really like about it, is your book doesn't take sort of a single dimensional approach to trying to solve a problem. You start in the very first chapter with what I totally agree and teach. The number fundamental one problem, you call it the fundamental market problem. I just say, you're in business for one reason and one reason only. That's to solve a problem for somebody. And you have to have crystal clarity about several things. One is what problem you solve, who has that problem, how many of them are there, how valuable is your solution, and what are the alternatives there's currently turning to. Now, that's kind of the way I approached it. As I started reading through your book, not only do you start on that rock solid foundation, but you also take a holistic look at pretty much the whole enterprise. And when I say pretty much, I'm not through the entire book yet, so I can't say the whole enterprise. I suspect it's a pretty much holistic whole enterprise approach.
Yes. And
you offer so many great real world examples. You also, in a variety of ways, describe the similarities between sort of what you do and business in general, is kind of like a martial arts program, white belt, yellow belt, and so on up to black belt. And then you can have all the different bands on your black belt. This is a book that really covers, without the accounting side of things, pretty much the entire business school curriculum. And at least I haven't found accounting in there. It covers pretty much the entire business school curriculum in terms of the fundamentals of what you need to do to have a successful business. But you package the thoughts in a little different perspective, and it's very, very refreshing. So, describe kind of what your sweet spot for your ideal client is. I know you can work your magic on pretty much anybody, but there's a lot of people that, that don't have a big enough business to really benefit from you and for you to benefit working with them. What is sort of your sweet spot? Give me a range of the kinds of companies that you've helped from the high to the low end of the range.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The roadmap in the book is geared toward pure startups. And if you have an idea and you're thinking about an idea, what to go do first instead of going out and spending money on the product or the service, and can scale up. I do the same work inside large billion-dollar firms. I just go into more layers and unpack more complexity as I get in larger organizations. But I do want to say this, and whether they're just startup or don't have a budget at all or can't afford a program, I have a lot of free resources on revenuegrowthcompany.com, all spelled out. And I have articles and blogs. They're professionally edited. I don't just write stuff and throw it out there. I really think through it. Right now, I'm doing a series on entrepreneur myths. I just did the myth that you have to hire salespeople to grow your company faster. I blow that up in 4 different ways. And so there's resources out there. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm just getting started for more resources because I really want to help. Part of my mission is helping 1 million entrepreneurs and or employees become millionaires from their businesses, because success in entrepreneurship just helps everybody. I mean, it is an absolute win for everybody in the world. And I really want to help more people be entrepreneurial, not just entrepreneurs that they go off and start companies, but they help the company that they're in. The perfect company, and this is interesting. So if you follow traditional marketing, I'd answer the question to a demographic that, well, they're private, they're under 100 million, directly engaged with the CEO, or they might be startup. But my perfect client profile is really more of a psychographic that I explain in the book. And it's anybody, any size company, anywhere in the world. And I just heard from some folks down in Chile that have my book and they're working through it, that have the will to do things differently. They have the will not to focus on growing their business, which is last century's path, and they're willing to understand a different roadmap to creating business wealth. And I will find a program, a plan, content, or information to help that individual, because they want to do things differently, they want to do things better, and they have a sense of urgency, and they truly are entrepreneurial. And that's my perfect client profile. And I've got a few companies right now that are pure startups. I mean, they've got their idea, kind of thinking through it. And I've got clients that are trying to think what size in the hundreds of millions, just all over the map. But my filter at the end of the day is their willingness, and I talk about that in the book, to have the will in the way. Not the will to work hard, not the will to have discipline, not the will to get up early. Every small business owner has that, but it's the will to not work so hard, but learn a different roadmap, to be different than everybody else. Because at the end of the day, everybody's doing digital marketing. That's nothing new. Everybody's on social media. So stop thinking that you're unique or different. But how you're unique or different is, how did you get to that platform? What's your content? What's your message? What's your positioning? And if they have that desire, they have that will, and whether they're an employee or a VP of sales or a CEO or a partner or a venture capitalist, I want to work with them, because I don't want to spend any more birthdays trying to convince people to change. If they don't want to change, they're on their own, and they're going to stay stuck in last century, and God help them.
Well, as you well know, one of the things people are most afraid of is change. And that doesn't really matter if you're an entrepreneur. That can still, be a difficult thing, because you get used to doing things a certain way. Kent, how large is your organization? Are you a one-man team, or do you have an organization around you that helps you implement all of these changes and advice with the clients that you bring on?
Yeah, so I have our operators and architects. So I don't do any of the executables, meaning I don't myself or anybody on my team, and I use mostly fractional people. I don't do any of the executables of the marketing or the sales or any of those things that are client facing. I just design the framework and the blueprint behind the scenes, and then implement the parts and the pieces to do it. Down the road, I'll certify more people that can roll out this particular roadmap, because it's packaged and framed. In my more advanced complex programs called RAMP, Revenue Acceleration Management Program, there's about 600 modules. I'm the only one that can deliver all of those in flexible manners, because I created them, but I could never have the years to teach somebody, because every company needs something a little different in a different sequence. Except for what I put in the book, these are the same 12 to 14 things I fix in literally every company I walk into. Everyone I talk to, we start back with, let's talk about your fundamental marketplace problem. Why do you exist, and why should someone care? And very few people, this is fascinatingly, very few executives can effectively answer that question. I asked that question yesterday of a $3 million software company. I hope they're not listening right now. And the CEO fumbled, and then the ops person kind of picked it up, but he kind of fumbled, and I just paused, and I was silent, and I said, how do you feel? And they're like, wow, yeah. And that's the beginning. That's foundational. So if you could imagine building a house or or my gosh, a skyscraper, and you don't even have your foundation put down, what are the chances of creating a sustainable, fast growth business? It's not.
I work with lots of small businesses myself. I'm not on the scale that you are, but we do a lot of networking. And one of the things we do is masterminds. And we certainly do a lot of masterminds around the topic of, who's your ideal client? What problem do you solve? All that kind of stuff. And it's amazing how few people can actually articulate clearly those things. All right, so we're down to about 5 minutes left, and I'm really enjoying this. I think we could go for hours, but
yeah.
I doubt that either one of us have that much time today. But I want to go back to, if you don't mind, that I kind of set this up initially, and I'm not going to put them on screen because they'll actually sit on top of you, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it for just a second. So I started off with this one, which is all feature based. And then I moved to this one, which I told you about, which is grow faster, earn more, and retire richer. And you said that's too generic. Basically, I think you meant that doesn't touch somebody's emotions. And of course, we all know that everybody listens to radio station WII-FM, What's in It for Me. And so I came up with this as an evolution in that thought process. And I tried to make it a little bit more, crazy, emotional. But now, before you can give me guidance, you may have some questions, but let's show people your thought process on this fundamental thing. What would you say to that last one, and what are your thoughts? What questions do you have?
Yeah, so, and this is the power in the book and the roadmap. That's why it's a roadmap, not a path or a checklist, because you've got to sequence the steps together. It's a combination lock, not a padlock. And the key starts with what is the problem that your offering solves? What is the FMP that you're trying to attack and fix? What would that be?
So the answer to that question is, there are 30 million small businesses in the United States that struggle with the answer to the question, where's my next customer coming from? I want to help them solve that problem.
So is it a client acquisition, a client attraction, a lead generation? How would you frame that as the problem?
So the majority of small businesses don't have a pipeline. They don't know, they don't have a way of reaching out and touching clients in a volume, consistent, repeatable process. So we have a software platform that is sort of
hold on. No, hold on. Like, don't go into you yet. And this is one of the keys with the fundamental marketplace problem is once you go into you're already on the solution side. And yet we haven't framed the problem yet. I'm not hearing the framing because pipeline's different than lead gen. Pipeline is where you put the leads to manage them through a process. But client attraction, demand creation, lead generation, those are all very front-end pieces that you have to isolate and say, and I'm okay to say the majority of small businesses in the country lack the ability to generate high-quality prospects consistently. That's how I would frame that. Does that work?
So taking that, we are a client attraction.
Don't do you yet. Stay with me. And this is part of the challenge. It's so easy to go into who we are, what we're all about, and what I call Vendorville. Nobody needs another vendor. Why does that problem exist, and why hasn't it been solved?
Because there's no easy solution. I mean, there's lots of different ways you solve that problem differently for almost all different kinds of businesses. Each solution is somewhat unique because the customer and the problem are all a little different. So the challenge that I see is providing a vehicle or a tool that allows people to increase.
You just went solution side. Come back. So let me take a shot at this. The reason that problem exists is because small businesses lack the ability to integrate their value proposition into a digital approach to support their particular marketing strategy.
Okay.
And whether that's right or wrong, I just want to share with you, that's the kind of framing you have to do. And,
Okay.
and here's the acid test for that is, remember me in front of the audience last week, and here I'm in front of 125 leaders, and they're sharp people running some big companies. You've got to be able to make that statement that I just made for you, and everyone in the room has to go yes, because you saw me do that. I asked a question in the room that everybody said yes. Then I asked another question where everyone said no, and I said, okay, here we go. I just created the gap. I just validated the fundamental marketplace problem. The companies are great at what they do, but they're not very good at making money doing it. And so that's the kind of framing you have to do. And I'll tell you, once you do that, everything else is easy. Once you frame that without thinking about you or your solution, don't make it about you, because we're back to WIFM. Right. They don't hear about you. Make it all about them, what's broken, why it's never been fixed. Then the buyer's saying, okay, now I'm ready to listen to what you have to offer. But if you introduce it any earlier, you went into sales mode, and I'm shutting down. I'm turning off the radio.
All right, folks, that's a great example of why you need this guy. Now, I got to tell you, that wasn't as comfortable a conversation as I would have liked to have had.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here a little bit hot, a little bit sweaty, because I feel a little bit like most of your executives, probably a little bit on the hot seat, because I couldn't answer your question with the kind of clarity that I'm going to need to be able to answer it, because I have not yet fully absorbed the fundamental paradigm shift that really your book and your methodology is all about. And, not that I'm a great wizard of business. I mean, I teach business in B school. So I'm an example of how the system needs to change a little bit. Folks, you really need to get this book.
Hey, Lee, can I share something with you?
Go ahead.
The reason that was so uncomfortable and so challenging is those are muscles that you've rarely used or maybe never used at all. And that's where most business people are. They're all about what they do, but they've never created the mental muscle to understand why they do what they do. They may have framed it in the very beginning, and then they're off and running, and they're down the road like a good vendor, jumping through hoops, pushing their products and services. And I walk through every door, and I dial you back, and I say, so tell me why you exist. Why does the marketplace need you versus anybody else? And why should they come to you and only you? And there, I will just tell you, you think you're uncomfortable. I've watched grown executives cry because after a month, they still couldn't answer that question. And I said, I'll leave for a month and I'll come back. You call me when you think you've got the answer, but we're not moving forward, because this isn't a game where we check the boxes. This is a game where you have to get things perfect, because it sets up the next thing. Your system, your ability to create wealth with your system is only as good as your weakest link. If you start out with a weak link and a poor foundation, you're going to kill yourself and grind your employees trying to make $1.
I love it. Kent, this is such awesome stuff. One last sort of plug for his book. This is an awesome book. I'm telling you right now, you need to read this book. Kent, thank you so much for coming on today. If you ever have time again, I'm going to invite you back, and we'll do this again. But I just can't tell people enough how impressed I am. And I will promise you this: I'm going to read that book 3 times. I'm going to read it once, like I am now, to try to understand everything. Read it a second time for in-depth, and the third time I'll go through. I'll do what I tell my students to do: outline the book. If you read it once for understanding, once for comprehend, or once for overview, once for comprehension, and a third time to actually pull out the important points and bullet point it yourself, outline it, you're going to really learn it. And that's going to be that's my project for the next 2 or 3 weeks, is to get all those things done. Thank you, Kent.
You're more than welcome. I enjoyed it.
All right. Talk to you soon. All right, guys and gals. I'm going to put Ken in the waiting room, and I'm going to come back to my still imperfect slide. Why should you join? Because you want your company to grow faster, and I think we can help you solve that problem. So go to livestreamly.com, join the community, get all these wonderful tools, and I'll figure out later why you need them, even though I'm not good at telling you right now, as per Kent. Thanks. We'll see you on Monday, where we're going to continue talking about marketing, but I have to tell you, it's all going to be shifting through the perspective and the filter of entrepreneur to millionaire. Thanks again, Kent.